Okay, everybody, let's start this little show. Okay, so Woodrow Wilson's New Freedom and the New Nationalism were both trying to figure out how to expand the government's role in regulating business. So I'd ask a lot of questions right now and try to get some answers out of you, but not all of you are in live chat. And if I have full screen mode enabled, I can't see you. So a couple of things to think about. And if you end up with some questions that I don't answer or give you right now, make sure that you write those down, and then when we're all back in the live chat, we can look at them. But think about the fact that Woodrow Wilson and Theodore Roosevelt are both considered progressives. So with the fact that they're considered progressives, they end up finding ways to make sure that the government can regulate the business community in some way so that there are protections for consumers and protections for workers, and that there is not seen to be any kind of unfair advantage the businesses have. So that's where you look at their two programs. So even if you're not sure the difference between New Freedom and New Nationalism, keep in mind the broader sense of the terms, that these two are progressive era presidents. And that's what's going to make sure to help you. So there's our first question. I'm going to move on to the next one and see how you guys do on this one. Okay, so we've got some good scores here. Nicely done. New Frontier and Great Society. What idea did they share? Okay, we got some 31 answers here. So nicely done. I'm glad to see that we have 28 of you that are participating that got that correct answer. So remember that the idea is that government provides some sort of assistance or some sort of program to aid those less fortunate, whether it be Medicare, or if you look at ways in trying to advance civil rights causes. The government takes an active role in promoting social causes and solutions for what are perceived to be social problems. So nicely done. JFK, that's interesting. You've got 1845, so we've got we got some good scores showing here. Let's go on to the next one. Watergate scandal. Okay, nicely done. The Watergate scandal was when Richard Nixon and his band of people, or Richard Nixon had his group called the Plumbers, who were trying to find ways to aid the Committee for Re-election of the President, or CREEP, to find what they could on the Democratic candidate, broke into the headquarters at the Watergate Hotel complex. And when Nixon learned of it, he ordered it covered up, paid hush money to keep people silent, and basically tried to direct the FBI not to investigate the matter, so as to avoid any ties to Richard Nixon. So that is the Watergate scandal. He was trying to make sure that he got elected in 1972. And if you remember when we were watching our Rise of Conservatism video, John Green points out that one of the things that makes it ironic is that Nixon was probably going to be assured of victory, because McGovern did not have enough of the votes to really make a difference. He didn't have a lot of the popular vote. So Nixon easily won re-election and did not need to have done any of that, but he was kind of known to be paranoid. So, all right. So Donald Loves Putin is on the board, and we've got some players that hit a nice little answer streak, number 3, which is great. Let's go on to our next question. Which of the following is the most crucial in bringing about U.S. participation in World War I? Is it British propaganda, German submarine attacks on merchant and passenger ships, German violation of Belgian neutrality, or German interference with Mexico? Nicely done. This is a perfect example of tricky wording, designed to see how well you're paying attention and know your stuff. So if you look at these 4 particular answer choices, the one that is meant to be a detractor is the phrase German interference with Mexico in the green. And what that's saying is that Germany somehow interfered with Mexico as a sovereign nation. What the reason it's there is for you to be confused. If you're not reading closely, you might think it's that it had something to do with the Zimmerman telegram, in which Germany proposed an alliance with Mexico and to declare war on the United States and become their partner if that was indeed going to happen with the Germans anticipating a U.S. declaration of war. So that's what that's there for. And the only answer that works in this choice and is accurate is German submarine attacks on merchant and passenger ships. Remember that one of the things that you can see from the U.S. entrance into World War I is that Germany says in that telegram, the Zimmerman telegram, that they plan to resume unrestricted submarine warfare, and they fully anticipated that that would be what drew the United States into war with them. And that fact, along with the proposed alliance with Mexico, are really the two final straws in leading to that declaration of war. So just a reminder to those of you who are in live chat, I won't be able to see what you're saying right now because I've got full screen enabled so that you all can see the image correctly on the stream. So if you have any questions or you have any concerns on something, let's keep those aside until we're done with the Kahoot so that we can make sure that we get those answered. Okay, Daniel Sun looks like he's coming onto the board. Silent majority is climbing, but JFK is in the lead, and it looks like that's supposed to be an M. So Savage, you're the highest climber. So good for you. Let's see if you can make the scoreboard, the leaderboard here. So let's go on to the next question. Why did the government have so much trouble enforcing the 18th Amendment? Was it because there was an incredible amount of money to be made illegally? Or the government stopped enforcing civil rights in the South? Is it because Jim Crow laws, or because husbands didn't want their wives to vote? So this is interesting. So this is a matter of making sure you know your amendments that are very important. So remember that essentially you are getting basically when it looks like the government stopped enforcing civil rights in the South. For those 12 of you, you were looking at perhaps confusing the 18th Amendment maybe with certain things with the 13th, 14th, or 15th Amendments. But what the 18th Amendment is the amendment regarding prohibition. And so that's going to be repealed later on down the road, but that's why it was so much trouble enforcing it, because they could make a lot of money. People wanted their booze. And so remember that we talked about that when you can look at statistics from Prohibition era, particularly the 1920s, you can see that alcohol consumption actually increased at that time based on some figures. So it was very difficult, if not impossible, to enforce, and eventually was repealed. So that's a good one to make sure that you understand the key amendments that have come through since the quarter. So if you look at the fact that you have pretty much, you should know everything from the 13th Amendment down. So 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th Amendment, 18th is definitely very important, the 19th Amendment, 21st Amendment, and so on. So make sure that you've got an idea of your amendments. So we've got, JFK, you have fallen down, and you are now in the 4th place, but silent majority. Just like in the 1970s, you have risen to the top. So good for you. Let's go on down to the next one. Because you don't really have to know this for AP exam or my exam. But in fact, I'm just going to skip it. So for the one of you that got that, wonderful. But let's go on and see the next one. So in addition to putting young men to work, a main purpose of the Civilian Conservation Corps was helping young married couples buy homes, promote reforestation and land conservation, providing opportunities for men to try new trade skills, or limit population growth. Nice. So one of the things is if you look at this, Civilian Conservation Corps, one answer that should stand out to you a little bit is the fact that it promotes conservation. But Civilian Conservation Corps was often used to establish parks and such like that. Now, those 16 of you who chose yellow, provide opportunities for men to try new trade skills, you're probably thinking of the Works Progress Administration. And the Works Progress Administration was responsible not just for conservation efforts, but I mean, when you think about like park building, I mean, they built parks, but they built airports, they built libraries, they built city halls, they built government buildings, they built all kinds of things for public infrastructure. So that might be where you were not sure on the two. So that would be the difference between the Civilian Conservation Corps and the Works Progress Administration. So let's go on to the next one. Well, let's first see our scores. Silent majority, you are still in the lead. And we've got the mysterious M symbol at right on your tail, not far behind, with the sun right behind you. So Jeha and JFK, you've got some catching up to do. But let's go on and let's go to the next question. Which statement best summarizes the open door policy? Nicely done. So the open door policy is going to have to do with granting equal trading rights with China. Spheres of influence is a phrase that gets bandied about, which is why it can be confusing and why maybe a few of you chose that answer. But the idea with open door, think about open door. If the door is open, everybody can come in. Everybody coming in would be equal. So if you keep that in mind, that kind of helps you make sure that you keep the concept of open door associated with that. Now, I would ask you normally, if I could see your responses, what are we looking at as far as who do we associate with the open door note? So remember, that's going to be John Hay, and open door notes are those correspondences that have to do with negotiating that policy. The idea is that everybody should be able to benefit and kind of equalize out any tensions with undue competition in China. So let's go on to see our winners here. The M symbol, you have climbed nicely. Silent Majority is still holding a great lead at 66.48. And D-Sun has fallen to be overtaken by JFK and JHA. So JHA and JFK are looking like they're becoming some formidable competitors. If you look here, they're on the tail of M. So let's go on to the next question. President Kennedy's legislative successes included all of the following except implementing a strong Civil Rights Act, increasing the minimum wage, establishing the Peace Corps, expanding the space program. Nicely done. So the thing to keep in mind here is that JFK was on his way to probably being the president that helped to implement a strong Civil Rights Act. But sadly, in November of 1963, his life was ended by an assassin's bullet, and resulting with his assassination. So it fell to Lyndon Johnson, LBJ. He gets to be the one who can claim the Civil Rights Act. But the minimum wage was part of JFK's legislative successes. The space program was expanded, and you want to remember that JFK's promise was that there would be a man on the moon by the end of the decade. That happened in 1969, and he did establish the Peace Corps as a way to help idealistic college students or graduates to help the world, particularly, interestingly enough, in developing nations that might have been considered susceptible to communism. So it was a way of trying to actually a quiet way of trying to fight the Cold War as well. So nicely done. Let's see where we're at. JHA. Oh, JHA is on fire. He is climbing up. He's going to overtake Silent Majority. The M symbol, you have fallen. D-Sun is climbing again, and we see the emergence of J on the board. So let's take a look at our next question. The 1968 Tet Offensive was depicted as a major U.S. victory, was a military victory for the North Vietnamese, brought an immediate end to the Vietnam War, or led to the belief that Vietnam War was unwinnable. So interesting. So I know exactly what 13 of you are probably saying here. 13 of you are probably saying was a military victory for the North Vietnamese. I mean, didn't the North Vietnamese, along with the Viet Cong, just kind of whip the U.S.? And yes, but the little thing that you have to remember about the Tet Offensive is that eventually it was beaten back. So the United States was able to beat back the offensive over a period of weeks, but it was not So that would technically make it not a complete military victory for the North Vietnamese. For it to be a full military victory for the North Vietnamese, it would have had to have been a permanent gain of the territory, the cities that they took over, and a permanent gain of that advantage that they gained by that. But so that wasn't necessarily the case, because the United States did beat back that victory. The reason why it's this is it led to the belief that the Vietnam War was unwinnable has to do with the fact that, remember what we talked about, Westmoreland had given a press conference where he said, the war is the end of the war is in sight. We're about to turn a corner. There's light at the end of the tunnel, and I mean, it literally was within a short amount of time where all of a sudden you get the Tet Offensive during a time of ceasefire. It had been typically the time of ceasefire for the new year, and they weren't anticipating it. Total surprise attack. Everybody comes storming out of the jungle, as my professor put it, and the television cameras were to capture it. So it did a lot in making the credibility gap that you might remember from your unit guide a thing, and it led many to believe that this was just not going to be a war that could be won. That the Vietnamese had a home turf advantage and were clearly fighting a different type of war than American troops had been trained to fight. So that would be why there's a difference between these two answers. So interesting. Jeha has taken the lead. Oh, nice. And we get the M symbol here is right behind him, not by much. DSUN has now moved into third. We see the return of silent majority, and JFK is slipping down into fifth place. So let's go on to the next one. The most accurate description of U.S. foreign policy toward Japan between 1900 and 1941 is: we supported Japan's territorial ambitions. We attempted to restrict Japan's growth and power. We encouraged Japan to develop a strong industry, or we lacked an interest in Japanese policies. Nicely done. So Japan's kind of the quiet one in the curriculum when it comes to United States policy towards Japan. Keep an eye on this one, because I can tell you that you don't have to worry about it so much for your final exam, but it is something that could pop up in writing topics or on the AP exam. So we can make sure we can explore this a little bit when we come to the spring study sessions. So let's go to the next one. Jeha, nicely in the lead now. M, you fell a little behind there. DSUN holds his third place. Silent majority is climbing back up the board in a fierce fight to regain the top position. So we get Praneeth. Praneeth has now joined the board. So awesome. Okay, let's go to the next question. In both the Korean War and the Vietnam War, the U.S. managed a stalemate with communist forces. The United Nations sanctioned the U.S. to stop. The United States fought for years without a formal declaration of war, or a lack of United States success led to growing anti-war settlement. Oh, I love this. Let's all be productive in live chat, and we can all make us look really good when he checks on us. Oh, nice. Let's see. All right. Children, U.S. fought for years without formal declaration of war is the correct one. What would be different here is if you look at the 7 of you that answered in red, U.S. managed a stalemate with communist forces. One of the things to keep in mind here is that that's there to throw you, because they're going to know that with the Korean War, you're going to understand the stalemate. But with Vietnam, when we say you don't want to assume that's a stalemate, because a stalemate means you reach a point where there's absolutely no movement. When it comes to war, it means you've absolutely gone to no movement. You're just stuck. And while you could say that the United States kept fighting unsuccessfully for years and years and years and years, and you could call that a stalemate, it technically would be like a stalemate, because in the sense of the Korean War, they got to a point where they were not going to be able to beat back any offensive any further north, and they weren't going to be able to make the entire Korean Peninsula democratic. So one of the things that that's there to show you is that Vietnam technically doesn't become a stalemate, because eventually the U.S. withdraws and the entire country ends up going uniting under one rule of communism. The green one, the lack of U.S. success, led to a growing anti-war sentiment. That one is another one that's a tricky one, because you got to keep in mind that U.S. anti-war sentiment, particularly from the beginning, was not because of a lack of success. It wasn't that people would have been all about the war if the U.S. was winning. Before it was clear that the U.S. was in a losing battle, people were very, very against having any troops being sent to Southeast Asia for any particular reason. They believed that the involvement of the United States in Vietnam was pointless. Remember that you have an entire generation, a youth generation of kids, that many of them were questioning authority. And again, you can't characterize everybody who was a baby boomer kid as an anti-war protester, but and I don't think the protesters are the only people that oppose the war. The anti-war sentiment was widespread, and it was basically because in wars like World War I or World War II, there was some sort of clear reason exactly why the United States needed to be there, because there was some direct threat to the United States. In the case of Vietnam, they'd already seen the Korean War, where people did die, and while it wasn't anywhere near as long as the Vietnam War ended up being, people did die, and in the end, there's kind of this thought of like, well, what was that for? And while people understood the need to fight the ideas of communism, they did not necessarily support, after a short amount of time, they did not necessarily support containment policy being so active, particularly when such a large number of troops were drawn and the draft was formed. So it wasn't because of success that they chose to support or not support the war. It had to do more with the fact that they were against any kind of involvement whatsoever. So good one there. Let's see, Jeha, you have now taken the board. You're still at the top of the board, but 3 players are dropping their answer streak. D-Sun, you're at number 2 place. M has gone to 3rd. Silent Majority still holding 4th, and Praneeth is at 5th. Both social Darwinism and classical economics agree that A, humans are descended from lower animals. B, the government should ease the lot on the poor. Free competition promotes human progress. or government ownership of business is desirable? Nice. No conversation needs to be had there. So let's take a look. Jayha, you are still there. D-Sun, we still have the same thing, except we see that Praneeth fell down, and Jonas has climbed to number 5th. Right on. So well done. Let's now go on to the next question. The largest absolute vote in U.S. history received by a third-party candidate was achieved by Perot in 1992, Roosevelt in 1912, La Follette in 1924, or Thomas in 1932. Interesting. So this doesn't surprise me because this is actually not going to be on your midterm. It is subject to being open to the AP exam. So a little more expansion on this in the spring review sessions. But it was Perot in 1992. And in 1992, it was a three-way race between George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and Ross Perot. Ross Perot was a Texas oil billionaire who really spoke to a lot of people who were disaffected with the Democrats and the Republicans. And he took a sizable amount of the vote. Some would say that if it hadn't been for him, it might have been a pretty decisive victory, or for Bush. I think Bush. So in any case, it led to Bill Clinton's election, and he did get about almost 20% of the popular vote. So let's take a look. Nicely done here. Jay Haas at the top. Let's move to the next question. Which of the following resulted from the banking reforms indicated by the Great Depression? Whoa, sorry. Ooh, interesting. Okay, so Second Bank of the United States was long, long before the Great Depression. The Federal Reserve Act is actually is passed by Congress during the Progressive Era as a Progressive Era reform. The Glass-Steagall Banking Act is what was part of banking reforms from the Great Depression. So let's take a look here. Jeha, you are still at the board. Silent majority with a nice climb. D-Sun's been knocked into third place. Jonas is retaining his fifth place, and the mysterious M is now at fourth. Let's take a look at our next question. The Supreme Court decision in Plessy versus Ferguson upheld which of the following principles? Clear and present danger, with all deliberate speed, separate but equal, or without redeeming social value. Separate but equal. Nice, thank you. All right. Jeha, silent majority. D-Sun is back up in third. M slips down to fourth. Jonas is holding on to fifth. Let's go to the next question. Progressive supported participation in the political process through all of the following except city manager form of government, recall, initiative, or direct election of senators. Nicely done. So the big thing to think about here is participation in the political process. So remember that what you have to remember is progressives are going to be all about government power to the people. And so if you look here, recall would be a way to allow ordinary citizens to, through a vote, recall an elected official from office and remove an elected official from office. So you might remember, you might know that is how Arnold Schwarzenegger became the governor of California before the current Governor Jerry Brown. Initiative is a way for voters to propose a law and have it passed through the voting process. And direct election of senators was a change to the Constitution, which allowed people to directly vote for their senators as opposed to them being chosen by state legislatures. The city manager form of government would mean that even though there's elected city officials, the city manager would actually serve as an employee of the city tasked with running the city. So somebody who has some professional experience in running a city as opposed to simply somebody who's just been elected. So I could run for mayor of San Diego, and if I won, that would be awesome, but I don't know the first thing about running a city. So that's what the idea is that you could actually efficiently run a city, but it would not be an elected position, at least in principle and how it was first rolled out. So remember, you're looking at participation in the political process by average people. This would not be participatory. So let's take a look at where we're at. Jay Haas still in the lead. D-Sun is now at number 2, silent majority number 3. Jonas has moved up to number 4, and Praneeth is back on the board. Let's see if he can take it up a notch and take out some of these people in front of him. So let's take a look. Which is generally considered the most ambitious reform program since What's the New Deal? Truman's Fair Deal, Kennedy's New Frontier, Nixon's New Federalism, or Johnson's Great Society? Great Society was considered to be the most ambitious reform program because Kennedy's New Frontier had certain popular reform elements involved with it, but it wasn't anywhere near as expansive and wide-reaching as Johnson's Great Society programs. And Johnson's Great Society programs, while popular with many people, not necessarily the rising conservative movement, they were very expensive, and they also contributed to a great deal of the stagflation that we see emerge in the 1970s. So let's take a look here. Jay Ha, you're still at number 1. D-Sun's there at number 2. Jonas climbing up the board at number 3. Praneeth holding on to that number 5 spot. And Silent Majority been all over the board tonight. Let's go to our next question. The basic economic motivation behind the coinage of silver was to encourage reduced production of agricultural products, increase foreign trade, ease the burden of debtors, or encourage increased production of agricultural products. Nicely done. Nicely done. Let's take a look at our answer to this. Jeha still at number 1. D-Sun right behind. Jonas holding on to number 3. Silent Majority unseated by Praneeth. Silent Majority right in that number 5 spot. Are we going to see Silent Majority falling off the board? Who knows? Let's take a quick look and see what's on number 20. By the end of the 1920s, when it became the nation's largest industry, automobiles, steel, oil, or railroads. Interesting. So we know that automobiles are becoming the largest industry, displacing steel, and oil is going to be an interesting one because oil is a big producer in the United States, but it's not going to be as popular as the automobile. And if you need anything to help you remember that, just remember Henry Ford and the Model T Ford and the idea of mass production made the automobile extremely affordable. And of course, the rise of consumer credit had made it possible for the auto industry to skyrocket. So you could finance your car. And that is going to contribute to being the nation's largest industry. Let's see where we're at on the board. Jayha still number one. Praneeth, wow, talk about a comeback. Number two. Silent majority, you made it to number three, but Eva has displaced both Jonas and D-Sun by coming onto the board. And D-Sun, you're at number five. Can you regain the glory you once had? Let's find out. Let's do a few more questions. Let's take a look at 21. The conclusion of the Sacco and Vanzetti case suggested that the two men were clearly guilty. Many had an unreasonable fear of radicals and foreigners. African Americans couldn't get a fair trial in the South, or the two men needed better legal representation. Nicely done. Sacco and Vanzetti had very, very, at best, circumstantial evidence presented against them. They were not African Americans, and they might maybe have needed better legal representation, but that's not really what the cases generally seem to represent. It seemed to represent the fear of the foreigners and radicals that had gripped the nation in the 1920s, hastened by the U.S. involvement in World War I and fear of communism from the Bolshevik Revolution and socialism, as well. So let's take a look at where we're at. Jayha, back at number one here. We got Praneeth. You are now at number two. Eva, number three. D-Sun has now regained the number four spot. Silent majority has fallen off, and Jonas has regained number five. All right. Let's take a look at another one. What did Reagan demand of the Soviet Union while giving the speech depicted below? Did he say, reduce your arms, Soviet Union? Did he say, liberate Eastern European countries of Lithuania and Latvia? Did he say, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall? Or did he say, Mr. Gorbachev, initiate the agreements that we made in the SALT II treaty? Let's see how you did. Nicely done, Mr. Gorbachev. Tear down that wall. Nicely said. Let's go on. Praneeth. Praneeth has unseated D-Sun and risen to the number one spot, where Eva is a formidable number two. Both coming up way from behind there. Jayha, you have slipped into number three. D-Sun, you're back on the board. You're still on the board at number four, and Jonas back at the board at number five, regaining that number five spot. Very impressed by this competition, my friends. Let's go on to the next question. Anti-feminism achieved its greatest victory in blocking ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment, creating the National Organization for Women, getting governments to stop aid for abortion clinics, or getting Congress to pass the Dependent Woman Tax Act. So, anti-feminism. The big key there was Phyllis Schlafly, and Phyllis Schlafly was the one who believed that labor-saving devices would provide women with all of the equality that they felt they needed in more time. What she thought as a woman should be in the home, should be raising the children, and that is a synthesis moment with the other concepts such as the cult of the cult of domesticity and the concept of Republican motherhood. The National Organization for Women is feminist, not anti-feminist. And government stopping aid for abortion clinics doesn't really hit at the idea of feminism or anti-feminism. It's a bigger argument that relates more to pro-choice and pro-life. And then there is no such thing as the Dependent Woman Tax Act. So that almost made me laugh as I said it. So, okay, let's take a quick look here. Praneeth still holding on to number 1 now. Eva still at number 2. Jeha holding at number 3. Jonas has unseated. Jonas has silent majority of unseated D-Sun. Jonas is taking the number 4 spot, silent majority at number 5, and it looks like Devaki is back in the game. She could be coming up. All right, let's take a look and go to number 24. One of the primary beliefs of the Farmers Alliances was that individual competition was most efficient in setting prices. Railroads could be under state control. Gold to silver should be 18-1. Where too much power is given to corporations and financial institutes. Nicely done. Farmers Alliances did not have any kind of calling for any kind of backing away from the gold standard, and that one actually should be reversed if you were going to do that. And then railroads being under state control isn't something completely unheard of. I mean, you did have people call for that, but that wasn't necessarily the Farmers Alliance, and they did definitely believe that corporations and financial institutes had way too much power and influence over the common people. So, nicely done. Let's see where we're at. Praneeth, number 1. Eva still at number 2. Jonas on to number 3. Jeha moving up to number 4. D-Sun is back on the board, and silent majority is knocked off again. Okay, let's see. We're going to do one more. Which statement best describes many of the reforms proposed by the Populist Party? Was it that they were just campaign promises? They were undesirable in a democratic country? They were won through the efforts of other political parties? Or they disappeared from public interest? Let's see what we did here. Nicely done. They were won through the efforts of other political parties. And remember that will come later when we get to the progressive era. Let's take a look. Praneeth. Number 1, Jonas has unseated Eva for number 2 spot. Eva's moved to number 3. Silent majority back on that board again for 5th place, with Jeha retaining 4th place. And unfortunately, my friends, that means we're going to end our quiz for tonight, but I will share the link with you in the chat window, and I will put it on Remind. I know it's a little late for a Remind, but for any of you that are up and want to play around with this, you can totally do that. Let's see where we ended up. Praneeth is the top scorer with 19 correct, 5 incorrect, for a whopping total of 19,000 points. So game is over. Let's see what you guys have to say as far as your responses. Remember, happy Mr. Vanover is a good Mr. Vanover. Uh-oh. Now, for those of you interested, you can play again using Ghost Mode. Ghost Mode is available to you, and in Ghost Mode, you can play yourself and see if you can beat your old score. So there's something for you to think about. So that being said, that was a rather great, rousing round of Kahoot. I am going to close our screen here on that one and come to our next one. And let's take a look here. Hi, guys. And let me bring back up chat window here so I can see what's going on. I still love this. Let's make it look nice. Ryan Houlihan was Donald Loves Putin. Looks like Janina is going to the circle of shame, and she's yelling at Natalie again. Janina evidently is being mean. Ryan's quitting. Philippe and Miguel are being mean. Screw you, Kahoot. Janina is cursing in my so no hating on my board. So Mr. Vanover, why do you have your badge on? So, I don't know. I didn't take it off. Habit. Janina, you need to stop bullying people and cursing on my board. Let's see. So it's 9:39, and some of you want your test scores to be released, and some of you want them put into Aries. So what I'm thinking is that we got a pretty comprehensive review tonight, just kind of hitting the whole range of things. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I'm going to call this one a night. What I plan to do is, because there's quite a few people from 4th period who aren't joining tonight, because they have other finals tomorrow, 3rd and 4th period, I should say. I may do another Kahoot session tomorrow. You're welcome to join. It'll basically be random questions again. So if you know, I can't guarantee you got them. Maybe we went through 25 of 100 questions. Yes, Nixon is on the white spot on the wall because I'm still too lazy to get some paint and take care of it. I have to find the paint color, and I think I had it custom made, and I can't find the can. It's all crazy. So in any case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I don't want you guys to stay up too late. I'm going to put a couple videos on the midterm page that will show up on the website probably in the next 15 minutes. Just watch the review videos. Don't make it a point to stay up half the night trying to cram everything, because you're not going to cram an entire quarter's worth of work into one night. I want to make sure that you guys just come in and relax. Don't flip out. So you got your stats videos. I know. Can we expect the test to be on Illuminate very soon? Maybe. I still have to look at, like I said, I have to take a look at versions B and C just to make sure that they're good. I cleaned up a few things on version A and on all of the versions. I will make sure to have those up as fast as I can, guys. I mean, I can release them, but I want it known that they're not fully verified yet. So if you didn't do as well on your test, I don't want to hear it until I know it's final, and it's final when it shows up in Aries. So hold on for Illuminate, and I'll go ahead and open them up while we're all here together. And give me just a second, it'll be just a moment. Okay, Illuminate has just been released. It is not finalized until it is in Aries. So no complaining and crying if the score isn't what you want it to be just yet, because I don't know that it's finalized. Okay, we good on that? We clear? We all good on that one. Why is it out of 54.9? Because it'll be rounded up a tenth of a point to be 55. Jason Picker, I don't know if it has been curved because I haven't finished the analysis. I did add answers I did add 3 questions. I added a second possible answer. So if you answered one or the other, then you could have scored a point. So I didn't drop them off. It was left to be, it was left for either answer to go. JP, it's not done. And if it was lower earlier and if it's higher now, then shh, don't say anything. Sarah Wands, it's going to be okay. It is eating away at your soul. I am a soul stealer. That's why I entered education. So thanks for discovering and finding me out. You've ruined my evil secret. Um, so don't worry. The class isn't killing you. You're not killing you. Sarah, I'm not offended whatsoever. So don't offend. I'm not offended. So am I a devil's advocate, Mr. Vanover? I am the devil's advocate. So, okay. So as not to steal any more of your soul tonight, because you need some more left from me to steal by the end of the week. I'm going to go ahead and end this session before Sarah makes me cry and makes me feel like everything I do is worthless. And I want to make sure that you guys are able to look at a couple things online and go to bed and rest. If you are in third or fourth period, I would, JP, I'm not even answering that. If you are in third or fourth period, my recommendation is to hold off on doing anything more tonight and come back online tomorrow night and take a look at a couple things, so as to not necessarily you can then make better use of your time tonight for whatever you have to do tomorrow, because we got Daniel Begg still editing some physics or stats or something video and all kinds of things. So with that being said, it's about time to go and say farewell. So farewell to all, and don't say too many curses for me, because I want to be able to live through the night. So you guys will be great. Just remember how pleasantly surprised you were with the quarter one midterm exam, and make sure that you understand that never as bad as it seems. So that being said, you all have a wonderful evening, and take a look on the website in approximately 15 minutes or so, and you'll see a little thing pop up on the study pages. So that being said, good night, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, hasta la vista, bonjour, bonsoir, good night.